Hi, this is ALTUS
and KRAGEN LUM,
and we're from Exodus
and Heathen,
and you're watching Guitar Mania
channel.
KRAGEN,
How are you?
good to have you in Vienna.
Thanks for having us.
Great to see you again in Austria, and you are touring with the latest album.
Well, yeah, latest you could say, yeah. 2 years latest.
And how have been the shows so far? How's been the tour going?
It's been great. I mean, it's a good package, you know, and there's a little bit of everything, like Obituary, old school death metal, you know, Exodus.
Yeah, touring with Obituary, Prong.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. You know, we're fans too. It's like each band kind of fans of each other, so.
I mean, how is it? Tommy is such a great guitarist. I mean, his rhythm playing, he wrote such iconic rhythm riffs, didn't he?
It's pretty awesome to watch every night, actually. You know, some of the stuff that he's playing and while he's singing, and super tight rhythms. It's cool.
Did he influence you when you, in some way?
I don't know if I would say that necessarily, but I've always been a fan, you know, of that stuff, of Prong. And his playing.
Yeah, the influence, I think we came from like the era like where whatever influenced him, it influenced us too. You know? So we're kind of like, you know what I mean? Like we were talking the other day and he was saying how, you know, Dimebag, you know, he, you know, admired him, how he played rhythms, and like Hetfield, you know, Metallica, they changed everything. So I think we agree on that, you know, like as far as like rhythms go, you know, like Hetfield is the best one, and everybody kind of looks to him in this genre of music, at least.
So you grew up and you studied James's riffs.
Yeah, it's a combination of, you know, Hetfield type rhythms, old Exodus rhythms, you know, things like that, and then, you know, lead stuff was completely different players, usually from different types of bands, you know.
I mean, it's a pleasure to sit with the Heathen guitar section here, KRAGEN, you and Lee, and I love your last album that you released.
Thank you.
It's great. And KRAGEN, you are basically helping out Exodus with playing the guitar parts that Gary normally plays.
Yeah. I mean, my job in Exodus is essentially to capture the feel of what Gary does, so that when the audience is there, they don't, if they close their eyes, they hear Exodus, and it sounds the same.
How did you go about preparing to like study the rhythm parts and play that?
Most of it I just sat and listened. There were some parts obviously where I couldn't tell, or I may have missed a note or something like that, and I'll sit down and Lee would show me, or even Gary would show me. He showed me some stuff too. But most of it I just did my homework. And the same with the guitar solos. I just sat and listened, and my style is a little bit different from Gary's, but I essentially just play my version of what he played on the record for the most part. There are a couple solos where I do my own thing, but mostly it's just trying to capture the feel of it so that people hear what is on the album.
I've been looking forward to meeting with you for a very long time. I mean, you're such a great guitarist. Your rhythm parts are just iconic, and I think you have one of the highest reputations in the genre.
I'm blushing.
I mean, you play, of course, Heathen, then you played for a very long time. You played the guitar for the Krupps. And then, of course, Exodus. How do you go about like rating your riffs, and how would you describe your own style?
Well, the riffs, I mean, you don't really think. You kind of like jam on riffs, you know, and you know, you could come up with 110 of them that you think is okay. That, you know, there's something there that you could build a song around, you know. So you don't really think about it, you know, it just comes naturally, I guess, from the influences that whatever, like when you're learning guitar, you know, it compiles into like your style, and then you don't think about it. It just comes out how it comes out.
How did you develop your rhythm chops, particularly right-hand technique?
Well, I was lucky enough that, like I moved to the Bay Area at the time that when it was like all happening. So everybody around me kind of had that, like you said, like, watched Exodus, watched Metallica, it's like this new way of playing, things like this palm muting technique. And I would just sit at home and practice that, and that's how kind of people say, well, how do you develop, Bay Area style? I don't think you can just develop it. You kind of like, if you happen to be there at that place, it comes natural. Like, I'm sure like all the, the grunge guys from Seattle, they didn't just, like develop it in a special way. It kind of came natural over there. Something was going on there. At the same time, that was Bay Area style, and I kind of picked up on it and didn't even think about it. I just copied and, like whatever anybody else was playing around me, this new style, and, and develop it into my own.
During your formative years, and this is a question for both of you, is like, did you sit down and say, now I'm practicing 1 hour just downstrokes and at beats per minute, I don't know, 200, or did you rather try and play to records and study riffs?
I mean, to me, yeah, I play mostly to records. Actually not even records. At that time, those records didn't exist. It was more like demo tapes,
Right.
and then like live bootleg tapes, I would play to like old Exodus live bootleg tapes, or like old Metallica bootleg tapes, which you couldn't really hear that much, but whatever I could figure out from there, just playing along, it kind of helps you, even if you're playing it, not totally right, but the style is there,
What about you?
I was fortunate, or maybe not. I wish I did grow up in the Bay Area, but I was a couple of years behind that, so the albums were out, and I got to listen, and sometimes I would sit in front of my stereo and pan the stereo just to the one speaker or just to the other, and play along with whatever I wanted. A lot of Metallica and early thrash stuff, and I loved old Ozzy, and I just tried to soak up as much as I could. And then I was also really lucky. I took guitar lessons from a studio guitar player in Los Angeles.
Okay.
And he taught me a lot about the other parts of playing guitar, about technique for vibrato and bending and playing on pitch, and a lot of things like that you can't learn unless
sound check.
A lot of things that you can't learn, necessarily on your own. You can do it by ear, but tone and amplifiers and things like that.
Yeah.
So.
And what about nowadays? Do you still practice, or is it you're on tour? This is enough. And
I don't practice enough personally. It's. Even writing, it's like I have 2 kids, so when I'm at home and I try to practice, you can imagine that they want to practice with me, and it doesn't really work out like in the old days where I could just go to my room, lock myself, and and practice for like 10 hours straight, not come out until dinner time, so it's different now. I would like to, practice more, because you can always get better, there's just amazing kids nowadays. The way they play, you watch them, and you're just blown away how they, what they took and how they developed, their technique and everything else, And it's, but we're just, we're no. It's like the old horse, learning new tricks. It's a little bit harder when you're older, but it's still possible. All it takes is it's just practice.
Yeah.
You need time and practice, and you can pretty much do anything.
I practice a little bit differently than I used to. I used to sit and just practice over and over again, doing the same thing. A lot of the sort of rhythm practice and even lead practice is through being creative or trying to create like new songs or anything like that. And then I'll try to challenge myself in different areas too. Like I was working on some classical stuff, which I'm not particularly great at, and then also trying to challenge my lead chops. I picked some crazy Jeff Loomis stuff to work on, and try and improve techniques that I can do, but not as well as I'd like to. So it's kind of trying more of a big picture practicing than just sitting and practicing a riff. You know what I mean? Or
Talking about equipment, can you tell us what you're playing at the moment?
We use campers. You know, I mean, I've been with ESP guitars for forever. I mean, I can't even. I think it was since late '80s, early '90s. And it's pretty basic. Campers make it, you know, so basic now. I mean, you get your tone, you know, you plug it in, you're ready to go. It's not like in the old days to where we're like experimenting with amps and pedals and trying to find that perfect tone, you know.
How many different sounds do you use?
For Exodus, it's very simple. It's rhythm and lead.
Yeah.
You know.
2.
Yeah.
That's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, still no ballad in Exodus.
I wasn't expecting one, actually. Presumably the same is true with you, for you.
Yeah. For the Exodus stuff, it's just two sounds, rhythm and lead. We have a really nice clean sound, which we use with Heathen, but you know, no need for it really in Exodus.
Looking ahead, what's next? I've heard the new Exodus album is in the making.
We'll shut that. Well, it's in talking, not making.
Okay.
It's more talking, yeah. I mean, you know, as strange as it sounds, I think, you know, at this point, you know, the Heathen album is more in the making than talking.
Right.
Even though, like, Heathen, you know, would put out an album every 10 years or so.
Okay, so how far advanced are you with the new Heathen album?
Well, I mean, Kragen's got, you know, pretty much the whole album demoed. Or, you know, and I mean, I have pretty much, I mean, the whole album, but it's just, you know, it's just finishing parts. Yeah, so we were even talking, like, you know, maybe even do the 2 albums. I don't know. But now Metallica jumped, you know, and stole our idea, so might have to rethink that, you know.
Have you heard it? How do you like it?
I only heard it once, so it's kind of hard to say. I mean, there's some songs I like, some I'm just not sure. You know?
Mm-hmm. Which direction would you say is the music going in the States now?
Overall, I mean, I actually couldn't tell you, because whatever, you know, the younger bands, I am so unaware of that. I'm like, that's where I admit I feel so old. It's like, you know, there's all these younger bands or whatever they call the hate cores, and I don't even know the names of styles anymore, you know. I am so clueless. Like, I go home and I'm like, I'm a family man, you know. I don't go out, and I'm not aware of any of that anymore, you know what I mean?
Okay.
I listen to everything. I get music constantly because I want to know what's out there. I guess I see a lot of bands sort of experimenting with being more technical or more aggressive. They're focused on all these different things except one important part, which is the song. And that's the part that kind of bums me out. You know, I really like the sound, and I really like some of the aggressiveness or the brutality or whatever you might call it, but it seems like the song is lost.
Absolutely, I agree with you. It's like some people have such incredible technical chops, and you're just impressed by the technique, but the song is missing.
Like all the gent stuff, they're fantastic musicians, all great, but there's not a lot to grab onto as a whole. You know, there might be a part that's really catchy or whatever, but I think that's lost. And for me personally, that's what I enjoy the most in terms of writing. I enjoy writing the songs. So the stuff that I've written for the new Heathen album is all song oriented. It's not even really all long 10-minute songs or anything. You know, it's more about a concise, memorable song, but keeping the sound, you know, how it should be.
Do you have any secrets on how to approach songwriting?
No, I mean, for me personally, it's whatever sounds good. You know, the stuff that I wrote for the last Heathen album, my thought was always to create something that a fan of Heathen would enjoy listening to have something written where people would go, wow, that sounds like Heathen. That's from when I write Heathen stuff, that's my goal, is to have it sound like Heathen. Of course, there are things that are a little bit different here or there because I'm not Lee, you know, but that's always my goal. And then to have it just be a memorable, catchy song
I mean, being two guitarists in a band has lots of advantages. And do you guys sit together and say, look, I'm playing this part, now you play something different, but you're complementing each other? Do you guys figure these parts out, or how does that work? Or do you write a riff with Lee's part in mind, or vice versa?
Yeah, for me, I think the same for Lee. We both sit and work on our stuff independently. We have ideas of what a second guitar part would be, and then we work together to figure out which one, you know, we would want to play in the other person. Usually what ends up happening is when he writes stuff, he'll come up with a complicated part and then do a harmony, and it's more complicated.
Yeah.
And he'll say, you're playing that part.
No, I mean, it also happens, like, you know, when you write is one thing. Once you get in the studio, you know, you could have, like, you know, if it's my song, you know, and then I wrote it, and then he could just jam on something and come up on top of it, and you know, we go, wow, that's cool, let's do that.
But that happens in the studio, not in the rehearsal room anymore.
You know, it's like it's not like in the old days where people jammed and they kind of, you know, we just don't do that. Even with, like, Gary and I, we write independently, you know, and same with Kragen and I. I mean, I don't know why. It's just like something we're used to.
So the jam factor is decreased a bit.
I think in general, in this type of music, the jam factor is decreased, you know? It's more, I guess we approach it more like songwriters and less like a band, if that makes any sense, in terms of the writing of the music. It's just hard to get, when everybody's in their 40s and 50s, it's hard to get people together in a room to jam, you know what I mean? Everybody's got families and other responsibilities, and, you know, and I think in a way, you know, like I think Lee has a vision of what he wants out of a song, and I know I have a vision of what I want out of a song. Sometimes you achieve it, sometimes you don't, but you know.
We always ask that question at the very end of an interview. What would be your advice to people, young people who want to make it as a musician and want to make a living out of being a musician?
Patience.
I'm sure you heard this from other musicians. Just don't, you know, go to college. I mean,
but it worked out for you guys. So.
Well, it is. I mean, you know, we were fortunate enough. I mean, there's other ones that were more for it, but it's really tough business. I mean, I'm not saying for anybody to quit, but it's just, you know, it takes a lot of patience, and there's certain luck involved. You know, there's, you know, time and place, you know, and like what you're into, you know what I mean? I mean, there's people that could be into certain kind of music that they really like, and they have a great band that they put together, but the timing is not right. That's not what, you know, the audience is into, you know, and sometimes it comes to them, you know, and sometimes it never happens for them. So it's tough business, but if you're really committed, you know, it's like you just keep trying and hope for the best. I mean,
what's the secret of, like, bands not breaking up and sticking together for such a long time? I mean, is there any advice
with
that
Exodus,
you can
give? It's like a family in a way. You know, I mean, even including me, they treat me like family. You know, and I think that's the difference. I think there are two types of bands. There are bands that are families that want to stick together and even work out their problems, and then there are the other ones where it's basically one guy driving the project, and he hires musicians and fires musicians, and, you know, those are the two types of bands.
Okay.
And as far as, you know, playing music in general, you know, I did go to college, and I was a video game producer for years, and I got into this late in life, really. You know, I mean, I was always a musician and always had bands, but sometimes it's just opportunity, you know. The opportunity happened to hit me right at the right time. So it's just being patient and kind of being persistent if you want to do it.
Do you do anything in that sector still? Like
I do some freelance work every once in a while, but mostly in the last couple of years I haven't done anything except play with Exodus.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Looking forward to tonight's show.
Yeah. Thank
now
you.
that you raised expectations, we're nervous now.